Okay, again, a very formal, warm welcome to everyone, and very, very happy to see all of you join us today. And I'm sure people will continue to join in. In the meantime, I'll just finish the introduction and then Ian and Leela will take over. So first off, very happy to have had the opportunity to host this event from WICCI. Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or WICCI in short, is a premier national business chamber for women in India. The vision is to impact women globally from across all walks of life, whether they are entrepreneurs, businesswomen, or professionals, through various sectoral and multi-sectoral councils across India and overseas. Now, the WICCI Coaching Council is a community of like-minded individuals, most of them being coaches, who believe in creating a new narrative for coaching and an impactful agenda for coaching in India. And the primary objective is to spread awareness and make coaching accessible to everyone. Now, as part of the International Coaching Week, the Coaching Council is hosting a range of events, like the panel discussion this morning that Jyoti was part of, and the pro bono coaching sessions, and also this masterclass. So I'm a co-member of the Coaching Council and extremely humbled to be able to contribute in my own small ways, especially at this time when our people need this support more than ever. I was also reflecting, from past few days about how this last year has been, and looking at it through the lens of various roles that I fulfill. And I must say that I've had a fulfilling journey. As a leader and a manager, every conversation with my team member is about a balancing act between empathetic connect and that of driving performance. And if I look at it as a coach, every coaching conversation is about moving my coachee to really bring in a lot of mindfulness so that they can prioritize or reprioritize self-care and compassion for themselves and others. So I've had to change and accommodate to support myself and others in the process. And what has helped me in this whole journey is having a set of strategies and tools, and which I could, very wisely pull up as and when I could. So it is some of these strategies and much more that we would like to bring to the table through this masterclass with Ian and Leela to all of you. And this is not a webinar, and we would like to provide a very different experience for all of you. So I'm just interested to know, something must have triggered in you or resonated in you when you saw the poster about coaching with compassionate wisdom and got you registered, and here you are today. So maybe let's take 30 seconds to just reflect on what is it that you would like to take back in the next 90 minutes or so. And if you could type that in the chat window, it would help Ian and Leela to increase the relevancy of this masterclass for all of you. So could I invite all of you to do that for me, please? Open the chat window and type in what is it that you would like to take back from this masterclass. Thank you, Swati. Okay, so we have some input coming here. Thank you, Samya, Jyoti, Shirley. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Kavita, Ranjita. Hi, Rajeshwari, nice to see you here. Great. So Ian and Leela, you have quite a lot of input there.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It's really nice to see all the thoughts here. I'm sure, it's going to be an excellent session because we have, Leela and Ian have designed something on similar lines. Moving on, I would like the opportunity to introduce the master facilitators for today. Leela Kirloskar. So Leela is an embodied leadership coach and facilitator with close to 3 decades of rich experience. Her focus is to support individuals to become caring, purposeful, spirited leaders who can then contribute successfully in their own environments in their own ways. And she comes with some mind-blowing credentials. So Leela is an affiliate at Aberkin, which is the McKinsey's global network of leadership facilitators, a Newfield Network certified coach, a somatic coach from the Strozzi Institute, California, and a systemic family constellations therapist. A deeply intuitive listener and observer, she strives to bring in clarity and depth to individuals and groups by holding compassionate spaces that allows for courage and learning to blossom. Her specialties are embodied leadership coaching, mastery in communication, deep somatic work with systemic family constellations, and transformational leadership journeys. Thank you, Leela, for being here and accepting to lead the masterclass with Ian.
Thank you, Pushpa.
Okay, Ian Faria. Ian is a seasoned leadership coach and motivational speaker. He's already smiling. With over 40 years of combined experience in professional and business settings, he has 3 distinct industry experiences. 7 years in Merchant Navy, where he rose to the position of a chief officer in a very short time. 14 years as a builder developer with 14 successfully completed projects. And then as a leadership coach, facilitator, keynote speaker, mentor, and motivator. He's a master in art of communication and influencing and an avid writer. He has spent more than 500 articles for leading newspapers, including Times of India and Deccan Herald. I don't know, some of you I think can relate to the Mind Coach program, which was on Radio Indigo a while ago. Well, it was Ian who was speaking with you through the radio waves. So nice to know that, Ian. Currently, Ian is on a mission to build leaders for India and strongly believes that to succeed, we just need to tap a little bit into the infinite power that rests within us. So thank you, Ian, for accepting to be here and co-lead the masterclass. Great. So before I pass on the session to both of them, just a couple of things, a couple of best practices on Zoom, so that it's a great learning experience for all of us. If you can come on video, please do that, because it is so much more human to see the other individual on the other side. And moreover, this is a master class and not a webinar, right? So it's different. You can be on mute if you're not speaking. The Q&A is actually built into the session, the way Leela and Ian have designed it, so you can unmute and speak then. And use the chat option generously. It will help to get your thoughts. You can listen to what you are thinking as well as the session progresses. So with that, let me assure you, we are all in good hands for the next 90 minutes. Let's all of us have a great learning experience. And over to you, Leela and Ian. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Pushpa. So just for everyone to know, I'm going to start with the first 25 or 30 minutes and really, have a space for question and answer at the end. And then Ian is going to spend the rest of the session with everyone. So welcome. And I'm so privileged to be here today with a group of my peers. So this is a first for me, and I'm absolutely delighted to be invited by all of you. So thank you for that. And really, I think when I first got the invitation, it just set me thinking about how much I've been in the same space, right? Like many of you, reflecting on how much compassion and wisdom are so intertwined into the work that we do with others. So very glad to be here. I think before we start, I'd like to read a poem that I pulled out for everyone. So while I read it, go ahead and make yourselves comfortable. If you want to close your eyes for a moment, you can do that. The poem is titled Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye, and it's one of my favorites. Some of you may have heard it. And if you have, then it's always a nice practice to read it again. Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out of the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all your sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, it is I you have been looking for. And then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Yeah, so just take a moment to let those words permeate as they do every time I see that poem. Like so many of us last year when COVID hit, one of the things that happened pretty much immediately was that clients began to hit a big pause button. Yeah, so I can see several of you nodding your heads. It sounds like that happened with everyone. Yeah. And I remember thinking, now what do we do? Yeah, now what do we do? And what I'm offering you today is really from all the experience I've had as a coach, in the ontological space, in the somatic space, and in the systemic space. Yeah. And what that really means is really viewing a human being in his or her wholeness. Yeah. Zooming in to pay attention to the living wholeness of the body and really looking at the whole as greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah. So I offer you in this next 25 minutes, all of that, in really like a snapshot view, right? The tip of the iceberg, as I was telling Ian and Pushpa right in the beginning. Yeah, so, and my context, as you all just heard from Pushpa, is cultivating spirited leadership. That's what I do. Yeah. So when I think back to some of the challenges I faced last year, I thought I'd just kind of place that in front of everyone and just see, while I do that, if you can pick some of the similarities, something that sounds familiar as I say that, right? So the first challenge was really, how do I stay in touch with clients, right? What do I do? They've hit this big pause button. Now, where does that leave me? Where does that leave my practice? And what do I do during this first 40 days of lockdown that we had last year? So I'm sure all of you, at least the ones in India, remember that, right? The first time we were all in that 40-day lockdown, the entire country was shut down. Something that's been, I mean, it's unprecedented, right? We haven't experienced anything like this in 100 years, if all of you have seen the statistics. Yeah. So completely, out of our domain of, any sort of expertise. So that was my first challenge, right? How do I stay in touch with clients? Yeah. And make sure that it is in a way that doesn't push my coaching practice, but really meets them where they are. Yeah. So that was my first challenge. The second one is, how do I begin to offer something in that space that they need? Yeah. And what is that? Really begin to identify what that could be. Really from the point of view as, again, making sure we kind of pay attention to the here and now rather than where are we going to be, right? So working with uncertainty, working with the grief that was coming up, working with anxiety, all of those pieces. Yeah. And some big themes came out of that, as I'll share in a bit. And my third challenge was really, how do I make sure that I stay resilient through all of this? Yeah. I mean, even given my life experience, I'm 51 and a half now. Given all of that, something like this has been unprecedented, right? And grief was a big part of last year. Grief and fear kind of came together in a big way for me personally as well. Yeah. So 3 big challenges. And I hope some of that sounds familiar to people here, right? I mean, I know all of you have come with a lot of your own experience, and I just would like to, invite you to pick up from what I'm saying from wherever you are, right? From wherever you are. So that's really the invitation. And the insights I have on compassion and wisdom are really an invitation for everyone just to go deeper into their own practices. Yeah. So I don't see them as strategies. And I know that might sound a little strange, but when we speak of human relationships, they're never strategies. Yeah. It's about how do I approach people in a way where I can be with them and be with their pain. Yeah. Expand my container, and I'll speak of what I mean in a bit with that. Yeah. So what did I do? So my experience was really, back then it was thinking about, okay, what do I do differently to make sure that I stay in touch with people? So I kind of, decided to say, here's a list of my clients. Yeah. And I wrote them emails. I wrote everybody an email just to share first where I was, what I was going through. Yeah. Like a check-in email. Yeah. So I don't know how many of you tried to do that, but it was something which made me feel that I was being useful to a client. Yeah. It made me feel that I was actually staying in connection, not disappearing from the space. And keeping that connection between me and my coachee, yeah, which was all important, because so many of us have coaching relationships where you're in the middle of something and you know the value of staying in touch with people rather than letting that space become too wide so that something disappears inside of it, right? So that's what happened with me when I kind of wrote out those emails. And what I shared literally were things like, I remember my mother went through 3 falls last year in the middle of COVID. So in the middle of all of that, she had a hip surgery, she broke her hip. So we were dealing with all of that. We were dealing with the fear of my 81-year-old father. Yeah. And every time I wrote an email to a client to share what was happening, to check in with them, you'll be amazed at how much response I received from them, right? Telling me similar stories of losing a parent, dealing with the with the difficulties of having children at home while all this was going on, dealing with this whole sense of uncertainty because, people were working from home. It was such a new concept for so many people who were used to going to the office every day. So there was a lot of stuff which came up, right? So all I really did was stay in touch with people just from the space of, let's just stay connected. We're all going through a shared, a human sort of experience with COVID, literally across the globe. And inside of those emails, I think what I did, which was really nice, was send people articles. I sent people articles that I found interesting. Yeah. A lot of the themes that came up last year, as you all know, were big ones, right? Were grief, were anxiety, were loss, the idea of what does loss look like, right? And how much it can kind of, spread across so many domains. Yeah. The whole theme around, this uncertainty. When is this going to end? Yeah. How do we pivot in our businesses? How do we pivot in our relationships? How do we manage, right? There was a lot of stuff which people were dealing with and a lot of sense of overwhelm. Yeah. And I think in some ways, just sort of staying connected to, to reading up stuff and making sure that I sent people some of the new, like, cutting edge articles. For instance, in a McKinsey quarterly, there was a fantastic article on anxiety which came up. Yeah. Which I remember sending to a whole bunch of my clients, and they came back and said, this is really useful. This is helping us settle. This is helping us center. This is helping us look for useful tips to take away from how do we deal with all of this. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of stuff which I sent across, in every email, every WhatsApp message. And it was amazing to feel, the response which came back. Yeah. Just from a pure sense of, let's just stay connected in all of this. So that was the first thing I did. First way I changed the way I work. Yeah. In a more intentional way. Yeah. And needless to say, given the situation we're in today, I'm still doing that because I know today has been just full of grim stories, and all I'm doing is just reaching out to my clients and checking in with people to see how they are. So it continues today. It's not just a story that happened last year, but we can see it's continuing. Yeah. yeah, the second thing is, how do I really make space for, this new set of themes which is coming in, which we've never really handled so much before. Yeah. And I said the themes already, right? And you can add your own inside of that. So grief, loss, death, all of those themes were beginning to come up. A lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. Yeah. And I think I connected to so much of that because I felt so much of it myself. I mentioned I live with my parents, and both of them are older. Both of them, care deeply about, all their children, their grandchildren, and just seeing what was outside was just very live inside my house as well. Yeah. So it was in a way easy to connect with some of those themes. So what I did during that time was I kind of, began to create some modules around, embodied well-being. Yeah. So one of the networks I work with, we kind of co-created a module around that to offer clients. Modules around leading through with resilience. So resilience was a big theme which came up last year. And I know it's still around for many of us. So that was a topic that was discussed and, put into practice, right? Put into modules in a much more intentional way, that we will move through this. And here is how we do that, right? And how resilience is so inherent in all of us. And how do we begin to practice it, right? Much more intentionally to keep us, to give us strength through this time. So that was another big topic. One of the things I also offered was a workshop on moving through fear. So I held a group space for 5 weeks and put together a small group, and really just to acknowledge what is, yeah, not to look at how do we move out of it and how do we get better at it, but just to offer a place for people to hold fear. Yeah. So that was an offering. So as I said, a few offerings kind of emerged from what we were going through last year. And some of the ways these themes also impacted me were that I put myself into some of these spaces as well. So with a few colleagues of mine who are coaches, we held a space of grief, a grief circle for ourselves as well. So across 5 or 6 weeks, met once a week for 2 hours and really just shared what was going on with us, right? So it allowed us to clear space for ourselves to be able to meet clients in that way. Yeah. Yeah. And the third thing, if I really look at the last piece around how did I, how did I move through that space myself, right? What were some of my own resilience practices, and what were the practices I leaned on? And just for all of us, right, as coaches, I'm sure everyone's aware of how practices are key for us to be coaches, who are able to cultivate, compassion, wisdom, all of that, right? What we offer clients. And some of those practices are things I do every day. I mean, I'm an embodied leadership coach and facilitator. So for me, being in practice is almost sometimes bigger than the work itself, right? That is the work for me. So, just leaned into my yoga practices. I'm learning Tai Chi since last year. I do a lot of writing. So for those of you who would like to pick up a practice, writing, a journal writing is very powerful. Yeah. To be able to just have a place to acknowledge, a place to name stuff for yourself. Yeah. So some practices, to help me pivot through stuff. And yeah, so 3 kind of big challenges in terms of, how do we do things differently? And I can really say that's what's really been holding me for the last year and a half. And what I thought I'd share as how do we begin to even approach what we mean by compassion and wisdom, right? How do we cultivate more of that? I'm going to ask Pushpa if you would please put the couple of slides that I made up. They're very simple, but I thought I'd speak through some of the ways in which we could begin to think of what it means to cultivate compassion and wisdom. Thanks, Pushpa. If you could just increase the size of it to a full screen.
Does this come through?
Yes, I think one of the challenges I had, just a full screen, if you could do that so that everyone can see. Yeah. I'm not sure if everyone can see it.
Okay, one sec. Let's share the screen again.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, see this? I hope I've put it in presentation mode.
Yeah, it's
okay. It hasn't shifted yet, Pushpa, so I think we're just waiting.
Not yet, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think one of my challenges today was really, distilling everything into something that was easy to kind of and useful for us to follow, right? So I've kind of put it together as how do we do this in our being, how in our doing and knowing. And if you look at the being, when I say expand your container to bring a deeper level of authenticity, kindness, empathy, and presence, yeah, for me, those are really the keys to becoming more compassionate and wise in life. Yeah, I mean, forget about coaching, but that's what you bring into life as well, and what you will naturally bring into your coaching. Now, what does this mean, right? So I think I was remembering a story, an old Zen story, where there's a monk who approaches an old Zen master and says, how do I hold all the pain and suffering of people? Yeah, when I work with people, it's really hard. And the monk looked at him, the master looked at him and said, well, take a handful of salt and put it into a glass of water and drink it. And he thought the master was a bit crazy, but he did that. And he drank that glass, and he's, spluttered and spit out the water and said, what are you doing? So the Zen master just smiled at him and said, follow me. And he took him to a nearby lake. And he said, now put a handful of salt into the lake and now drink the water. And when he drank the water, he said, I can't taste the salt. So he says, yeah, you have to learn to expand your container so that you're able to hold all of that. Yeah. And coaching, in the coaching space, we are the container. Yeah, we are the container. So it's for us to learn how to expand that space for ourselves and bring that deeper level, yeah, of our own being into that space with a coachee. Yeah, so becoming more authentic, yeah, is really clearing our own stuff, being able to be present in a way that is real and vulnerable. Yeah, kindness is a practice, and this is something I shared with a coachee of mine last week, because he asked me about kindness, and I said, okay, let's practice kindness. So I said, why don't you try 5 acts of kindness once a week and see what happens. So I'm waiting to hear from him at the end of this week. But I realized that, yeah, we practice kindness every day. Yeah. So see how you can do that. Empathy, I'm sure many of you have already, crossed this. Yeah. And empathy is about a lot of things. For me, it's about deep listening. Really deep listening, what we call generative listening. Yeah, you're listening to what wants to emerge. Yeah, and that again takes practice. And presence is my work. Yeah, presence is really cultivating that spirit, that spark that wants to express life from inside you. So all of these are the bigger pieces of work that we do as coaches. Yeah, and cultivating compassion and wisdom for others really means turning the mirror to look at your own way of coaching. Yeah, and in the simplest way I can put it is really this. When I look at doing, right, doing is committing to a whole bunch of practices, right? And by doing that, what we are practicing for is building resilience, building our listening muscles, building our own intuition, right? Being able to cultivate all of that. Yeah. And when I say, committing to mind, body, and spirit practices, this could be anything from any mindfulness or meditation practice that you pick, that really calls to you to do. Body practices are really to help you drop into your body. Yeah. And spirit is really how you kind of get in touch with what's bigger than all of us. Yeah, what's bigger than us. Can we feel into that? Yeah. And what I'm going to be doing in a few minutes after this is offering you one such practice, a foundational somatic practice that we do, which is a centering practice. So I'll offer it to you at the end of this. The knowing part, I think that's the part where, where we all kind of focus on a lot more. Yeah? And you've noticed I put it all the way at the bottom over here. So the knowing part is, for me, staying a learner. Yeah, not so much as what's the strategy, because sometimes when there's somebody in front of you, you'll have to drop all your strategies, right? And really just pay attention to the person and to see what wants to emerge. Yeah. So knowing is really staying curious, informing yourself. Like I said, for me, a lifelong learner. Yeah. And some of the pieces I've put here around mental well-being, managing energy, to support clients are just, again, themes that came up for us last year. So I thought I'd put that down. There's a lot of articles, but the thing is, as coaches, for us to be able to, again, distill what works for you in terms of making sure it is something that is relevant, that is holistic. Yeah, it's holistic. It doesn't just come from one dimension. Yeah. And also knowing your own barriers along the way, not barriers, sorry, not your own boundaries along the way. Yeah. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is our boundary as a coach and a therapist. Yeah. So the line between a coach and a therapist. Yeah. Knowing when to, how to offer support, and when you reach a point where you may have to, recommend something more for the client. Yeah. So just to be aware of that. Can we go to the next page, Pushpa? Yeah, thank you. So just a few takeaways, right? So again, just pulling in points just to make it, a little simpler. I said something already around making space for your own clearing regularly, right? There are times when all of us are stuck in places, yeah, whether it's relationship, at work, we're struggling with things. As coaches, it's important for us to clear those spaces, yeah. And without that, we cannot do the work in a way that is authentic, yeah, or be in integrity around that. Yeah, when a client is struggling with something, one of my mentor coaches once said that whatever your client is stuck with is the same thing you are stuck with. So if you want your client to make progress, it's really key for you to first move through all of that. So whether it is your own, experience around conflict, yeah, your own experience around, perhaps influencing others, your own experiences around owning your own power, all of that is something first you are invited to step into. Yeah. When I say take the time to check in, right, it's really with your client. Yeah. Have you taken time to really, check in about how they are? So one of the questions we typically ask is just how you're feeling. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And pausing to check really how they're doing and what else wants to come up in that space. Yeah. And just when I say feeling your client's energy and your own, now all of this is connected to some of the stuff I said in the last page, but really being able to have a sense of, what's inside that container. What are you picking up perhaps from their body language, to make it simpler? Yeah, what is coming up in terms of, are they looking tired, or are they perhaps sending out a signal of, of fear or anxiety? What are you feeling? Yeah. And sometimes I find the best way to check in with that is to check in with how you're feeling when you're sitting with them. Yeah. Because more than likely you will have picked up something and you'll be able to notice if it is your own or if it is theirs. Yeah. So, and that again is a practice. Yeah. Making space for what wants to emerge. Again, this is really listening. I think listening comes in all of this, but making space for what wants to emerge is sometimes you ask the questions, right? You sometimes ask the question as to what's happening or what's underneath what they're saying. Yeah. And sometimes they will give you cues in the form of language, and sometimes you'll have to pick it up through emotion or through the body. Yeah, but it's important for us to listen to that. When I say integrate practices, it's really, when you practice, whether it's for yourself or where you co-create a practice with a client, really to offer, that they do it around something which is intentional. Yeah. What are you practicing for? For the sake of what are you practicing? So that there's a principle behind the practice and it is not just for the sake of anything. So for example, someone mentioned, when I mentioned journaling earlier, I think it was Jyoti. Yeah. I think if I think of one of my clients, for them, they have in the past year, the journaling practice they began last year was something that just became an anchor for them. Just became an anchor for all of the stuff that was going on that they needed to place. Yeah. And they use the journal for gratitude practices. Yeah. For affirmation practices for themselves, just to acknowledge that they're doing something, which works. Yeah. So things like that, right? So how do you integrate the practices into daily life? And then how do you actually see the meaning that comes up in all of this, right? In terms of how does it impact, for instance, the kind of decisions they make. Yeah. So really to connect the dots with the practices and, and what the coaching is about, or, when they go back to their lives. Yeah. When I say offer creative resources And this is really in the context of this past year and a half, right? All of us have been reaching out to resource ourselves, and sometimes there's a lot that's available out there. So whether it is a mindfulness practice video, or whether it is a podcast which is interesting, or whether it's an article, think about how you can contribute back, to a client and add some more value as a coach. Yeah. And look at some of the topics which will help and deepen into this space, right? Again, from the context of compassion and wisdom, right? See if you can expand their perspective, their lens, to bring in something, where they can lean on, yeah, and find their resilience, yeah. And again, it connects to the next point. When we think of how do we cultivate resilience, yeah, there are a lot of ways, and all of us inherently already know how to do that, yeah. So whether it is, keeping nature close to your heart in some way, something reminds you, a plant in the room will remind you, yeah, or loved ones, yeah, or music, yeah, something which helps you to move on, yeah, but not in a way that that shuts you down, or kind of really helps you, not to kind of build your armor, but really to feel your skin, as I say, yeah. And yeah, commit to your own learning. As coaches, we are constantly learners, and I think that's been for me the biggest way in which I've deepened my coaching practice over the years, yeah. And I pulled out a lovely quote from Pema Chodron, which really says, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. And really, for us in today's context, it's really a very, very relevant, a beautiful quote. Yeah. Okay, so I don't have more really to share in this time, but what I do have to offer you all is a centering practice. So yeah, if everyone would be okay to do that, yeah, show me a thumbs up if everyone's interested in doing a quick 5-minute practice. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so go ahead, and if everyone is sitting, that's fine. If somebody wants to stand up, that's okay as well. And if you're sitting, just make sure your feet are flat on the floor. Yeah. Make sure you're sitting back in your chair so that your lower back touches your chair. Yeah. And you can place your hands just lightly on your lap. If you like, you can lace your fingers together, or lightly just on your lap, whatever you prefer. Yeah. And just take a moment, take a couple of deep breaths in. And breathe out. And just breathe in again. And just allow yourself to settle into the space, just to arrive in the chair. Yeah. And I can see many of you have your eyes closed. So go ahead and open your eyes. This is a practice we do with our eyes open, just to stay aware of ourselves and not disappear. Yeah. Okay, now with the next breath, I want you to drop from your thinking self into your feeling self. See if you can drop lower into your body, below your chin. Just become aware of temperature, whether it's warmer or cooler. You may feel the breeze blowing in. Just noticing what is. Now become aware of any pressure that you may have anywhere along your body. Again, you're not trying to change anything. You're just becoming aware of any tightness or strain or even pain. Just very gently place your attention there and just acknowledge it. And now notice any movement. Yeah. This may be inside your body. You can feel your heart beating. You can feel your lungs expanding and contracting as you breathe. Notice if any parts of your body are moving, perhaps your fingers or your toes. Or if you feel a restlessness from inside, just notice any of these to help you just become present open and connected. And centering helps us to reorganize ourselves around 4 dimensions. Yeah. And when we do that, it helps to reorganize the way we respond. Yeah. And really to organize ourselves around what we care about. And we'll center first along length. Yeah. So centering in length, just bring your attention now to settle your feet firmly on the ground and sit up a little straighter and taller and see if you can stretch towards the sky. Yeah, it's a simultaneous movement. It's your vertical line, stretch and settle. And now along your vertical line, just make sure that your head is placed so that your head is not too far back or too far in front, that your chin is horizontal to the ground. Your ears are tucked behind your shoulders. The head is the heaviest organ in the body. So if you move it too far back or too far forward, at some point it's going to cause us pain. So just notice and place it so it's comfortable. And now bring your attention to your eyes and the space around your eyes. And just relax those muscles. Now bring your attention to your jawline and just soften that space. You can open and close your mouth nice and wide. Just soften that space. Soften and let go of anything you may be holding on to. And keep noticing your breath as you drop your attention lower down this vertical line. Yeah, we're centering in our vertical line. Relax your shoulders. And if you like, just take a deep breath in and lift your shoulders all the way up to your ears for a moment. All the way up. Breathe in, lift up and drop them. Let gravity just drop them. Yeah. And now notice. Do that again. Breathe in again. Just lift your shoulders and drop them. And allow that to just drop you just a bit lower down. Bring your attention lower to your chest, your abdomen, and just soften and relax these places along your vertical line. Lower down your hips, your groin, your upper legs, your thighs. And again, just let go any tightness you may be holding on to here. And finally, bring your attention all the way down your legs to your shins, your calves, your ankles, and your soles. Our vertical line, when we center in length, is also about our dignity. And as you hold yourself in your full dignity, you also hold the dignity of others around you. And let that permeate for a moment. And now we'll center in width. And width is that place side to side. It's our capacity for connection. So it's left and right. So if you might want to very gently just move left and right and feel that space. Yeah. Feel that space very gently. And now come back to center and feel the space between your shoulders, between your hips, between your legs. Yeah. Width is our capacity to connect with our heart. So do what you need to do to perhaps open this up a little more, to let yourself out and let others in. Or do what you need to do to hold on to your own boundaries. Our width is about connection and safety. And now bring your attention to your back body as we center in depth. Our back body we almost forget about because of all these Zoom calls, we keep leaning forward. Yeah. So really firmly feel the back of the chair against your back body. Yeah. lower back, middle back, your upper back, the back of your legs. Yeah, just feel your back, and you might want to lean into it a little bit. And again, hold your center so you're not leaning too far at the back. Yeah. And as you feel into your back, also feel into your own ancestry, yeah, your lineage, as also your accomplishments. All of that is behind you, your achievements, everything that you've done and you've been right up to this present moment, all behind you. And depth is also inside of us. So take a moment and just feel inside of yourself what that feels like. And depth is also in front of you. So notice perhaps the air on your face, the clothes on the front of your body to give you access. And the depth in front of you is the vision you have for yourself, or the goals you have, the future you've built, the future you see. And now take a deep breath in. And let's center on purpose. Bring your breath all the way down to the center of your body, 2 inches below your navel. And if you like, you can place one hand over there, 2 inches below your navel. Bring your breath to land there. And now feel your own aliveness. Feel what is alive for you, your concerns, your cares, and your commitments, all available here. This is not a center of peace. This is a center that informs you of what is alive for you. So notice that. Okay, with this next breath, just become aware of how you've reorganized yourself just a little bit around length, width, depth, and center. And notice your narrative, notice your mood. And as you come out of this practice, go ahead and in the chat, give me one word which describes your mood. And I will then hand this over to Ian. Thank you. So lots of calm and relaxed, expansive, thoughtful, energetic, present. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, peaceful. Thanks, Ivy. Okay. You're welcome, Malini and Ranjita. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to close and like I said, hand over to Ian. So thanks everyone. If you want more information about anything I do or anything I write, I have a website. So go ahead and look that up. And I look forward to staying in touch. I will be here, of course, for the rest of Ian's session. And do you want to do questions later at the end, since it's already 5 to 6, Pushpa? What do you advise?
Yeah, we could do that. Maybe we'll listen to Ian so that we get 2 different perspectives that would expand.
Yeah, we could hold that space together. Yeah. So if anyone has questions, then for me and for Ian, just give it at the end. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Leela. That was awesome. Okay. So this is me. My name is Ian Faria. That's my name there. And after Leela's session, I'm just thinking, why don't you guys just, close your eyes and I'll send all these messages to you telepathically. Good idea? Pushpa's smiling. She's saying, what's wrong with this guy? Okay, so coaching with compassionate wisdom, I thought this was really a nice topic, a nice theme. And one of the things that I first noted was that compassion comes from the heart and wisdom comes from the head, more or less. So I like this. I like the heart-head combination. I think it's really powerful. So the emotions and the logic, if you look at it in another way. So yeah, so my name is Ian, spelled like the last 3 letters of Indian. So you know how to pronounce my name and you know how to spell it. Now, are you getting this a changing world slide come up? No? Okay. Let me stop it and then send it again. Sometimes this happens on Zoom. Okay, now?
Yeah, now it's up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, thank you. Okay, so changing world, what is changing? I think first things first. I've been talking about this word called the VUCA word, and VUCA is an acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now in this VUCA world, which was brought to light and centered for all of us through the pandemic, something that I have been practicing and preparing for the last 5 years actually came to pass. So this transition from being in person and showing vibe and feeling vibe and coaching with the face-to-face, all of a sudden changed to doing coaching online, doing training for public speaking online. And all of a sudden this world that we knew of changed. And for me, it was very curious and very interesting because, you know, it's not going to frighten me, but I said, let's see if I can be first out of the blocks. So we did inform some of our clients that we are ready to do even public speaking training online, even though we were not open to that earlier. And we did have some good sessions. In fact, we created our own sessions we created a program called Pro Talk, which is online training for public speaking, influencing, impacting. So this VUCA world, we are prepared for it in advance, so we really figured it out quite quickly. The second point I want to bring up is confusion and fear prevail. This is because of the pandemic and nobody knows what to do. One time they tell you Covishield is good, another time they say no, Covaxin is good, and Covishield, don't take it. In fact, there's a writ petition in the Supreme Court saying, please stop it because there are so many downsides, they have to tell us about it. And it should be voluntary, not compulsory. So there's confusion, there's fear. People are dying out of fear more than out of COVID. And I know enough cases of this. So how do we as coaches now start to understand this world? We need new paradigms. New paradigms are required, and I'm so glad that Leela brought in a lot of new thought and vision to this whole aspect of coaching. And since you have a nice coaching, fraternity of women, I think really this is the time to start to figure out what's new. So if you just take what's given to you as a coaching program and just try to incorporate that, let me tell you, it's not going to work. It has to be individually given. And just like everyone has individual tastes and, everyone wants things slightly differently from everybody else, a one size fits all doesn't work. So the more number of paradigms you're aware of, the better it is for your coaches. The last part on this slide I want to say is, how do you coach with compassion? So compassion is feeling. Compassion is getting into the mind of the other person. Compassion is empathy. A lot of different words are there for compassion. How do I feel your pain? But some of us, especially the coaches, the male coaches, want to get to action quicker than normal. They don't want to wait for that empathy and getting all that, soft and mushy. They say, okay, come on, guys. You got a problem? Let's move. Shall we move from here? And for men in coaching program, they want to move as quickly as possible. They want action. Women want to be understood. They want to be, in that zone for some time. And I'm reading this nice book called Chatter. And he warns of a problem that is created in our own mind when we ruminate, when we go on and on and on about a problem. And there's no solution, there's no movement. So what happens? That big problem in the head starts to expand itself. And it gets bigger than us. And then it eats us up. Brian Tracy in his book called Eat That Frog, he says the frog is something that you don't like, but you have to eat. It's like the unpleasant things in life that we have to do. So at some stage, you have to also be able to eat that frog. Brian Tracy's view is eat it when it's small. You can just swallow the whole thing and forget about it. But no, you say, no, it's too yucky. It's too, so I'll wait till tomorrow. But tomorrow it gets slightly bigger. And day after tomorrow is even bigger. End of the month, the frog is so big you can't eat it. Right? And if you wait for longer, the frog will become bigger than you and the frog will eat you up. So that's the whole paradigm of the eat that frog thing. He says it's something unpleasant that you have to do it now. I'll give you a slightly different view of that. I'll say magic happens outside the comfort zone. So while it's nice to be in that compassion and empathy and feeling and all of us are connected, it's actually not where your best game is played. Your best game is played outside of the comfort zone. So how do we get uncomfortable? I loved what Leela said about the new practices. Keep on learning, keep on getting new things into play. And you look at the number of things she has done, you'll realize how much she has put effort into that. But it's still not enough because today's world is going to throw up newer and newer challenges. So let's look at how do we manage this. So how should coaching change? Are you getting this slide come up? Okay. So we have to be updated with the latest in psychology. In the, before this pandemic hit us, I think I must have had about almost 500 books on the mind and the brain. And I picked up at least, I think, close to 80 books during this pandemic time. Mind studies are going on at a rate that you can't believe. They say we know more about the brain in the last 1 year than we know in 10 years. And we know more about the brain in 10 years than we know from the beginning of history till 10 years ago. So now if you're using a paradigm that's 30, 40, 50 years old, I'm telling you, you're already archaic. So you need to look at the latest. So if you're not read any new books on the brain, I would encourage you to do that. I'll send a list to Pushpa of some of the latest and the best books on the brain or the mind, and maybe that she can share with all of you. So be up to date with the latest. Understand the needs and plans of the coachee. Now, I want you all to understand this. There's one area, if you don't mind, that I'm going to ask you to dwell on. Coaching is not like counseling. It's not like, being a friend. It's not that, we have to all understand each other that much. We have to understand what they need and why they came to you. I think that's very important. And the coachee doesn't come to you because they want to be like you. They want to be like themselves and better version of themselves. So that's something that you should understand. How do you help them become the best version of themselves? You have to know what plans they have, where they need to go. What are their needs now first? But don't dwell on it too much, because if everybody wants compassion and caring and kindness, you're going to just stay there. I think if you have to move, you have to make plans to move out of there. So while that's important initially, and for us as male coaches, we have to understand this. We don't go to that place. And some of the ladies I'm coaching, they say, but you're not compassionate enough. You're not seeing the problem from my side. My view is, and this is exactly what the author of Chatter says. He says the more you ruminate and the more you repeat those old examples, we used to call it venting, and in counseling they say venting is good. But today there's enough proof to say that venting doesn't do any good at all. In fact, it's counterproductive. So if you're not aware of some of these new things, you'll be doing the old stuff. So that's the idea. How do we make the new plans? Now, these question, actions, and benefits, most of us, we know what has to be done, but we don't take action. The doing part doesn't happen so easily. So I give my coaches a nice formula called LAB, learning, action, benefit. So from every session, I ask them, what's your learning? What's your learning of the session? How are you going to action some of those points? And what benefit will you get from it? Benefit puts the heart back into the game and says, I'll get this benefit if I do this action. So I commit myself to the action because now it's emotionally tied in also. So the action benefit part of it, you must understand. Just the knowing is not enough. Just the sharing is not enough. Just giving nice gyan and wisdom is not enough. You have to make them commit to action and get the benefit. Otherwise, they'll say you're not a good coach, nothing changed. So the same people who are asking for understanding, caring, compassion are going to say, but what? I didn't get anything. So today's world wants to see some results. So this point will help you go there. Now, the other part I see coaches doing a lot is this preaching part of it. No, you should do this, you should do that. Actually, you know what? You did this wrong, you did that wrong. We don't need a preacher. We go to church or we go to some satsang and get that. Why do we need to come to a coach for that? But if you share your own feelings, you share your own examples, sometimes we can call that a case study. If you share what happened, what you did wrong, what you could have done better, and you nudge them, that nudging is a very important part. There's a book called Nudge It. I would advise all of you to read it. It's not about pushing people. It's just slight nudge, just their little elbow, this side, that side. So you keep them on a track that they want to go. So that has to be done by both of you sitting down and working out where do you really want to go with them and what's the practice of that. So I thought I'll just share some of these things, and I've made a few points to share with you in addition. So here are some of them. So the coachee, not only what they need, but what they want, both of those have to be understood. But your work as a coach is to not just give them what they want. We'll try and give them that as quickly as possible. I'm saying that's good because the coachee feels satisfied. They feel that they're getting what they came to you for. But what do they need? What do they need? I'll give you a small example. Somebody came to me recently and said, Ian, do you have a program to build my vocabulary? I'm thinking like, wow, what do you want to build a vocabulary for you? Your English is excellent. And he said, no, you don't understand. My English is not good. I said, can you give me an example? And he says, whenever I go up to speak on stage, whatever words I want, it doesn't come to me. So I said, wow, I'm so glad I asked you the question. Actually, what you need is not vocabulary building, but you need to be calm on stage. And public speaking is the world's #1 fear. If I can get you to speak comfortably in public, really, let me tell you, your vocabulary will come back to normal. Because the mind, when it's stressed, it doesn't get the words that it requires. But what did the coachee think? I need vocabulary building. What did they actually need? They needed to be calm when they're speaking in public. That's it. If you don't understand that, then you're going to give them what they want is vocabulary. So this differentiator has to be understood. The second thing I want you all to also have discussion with the coaches, if you don't mind, is this. Are you aware of what the world requires? Because if you're coaching them for what was required 1 year ago, it might be already too late. The world has changed so much in the last 1 year. Tens of thousands of jobs have been lost to traditional workspace. Software engineers have lost jobs. Now we got software as a service being given to people. Analytics is being done better by the computer than by human beings doing it. So the space of, we don't need storage that much anymore. Everything's on the cloud. So there are a lot of different changes that are happening. Robotics, there's a factory in Germany that is fully automated plant of Mercedes-Benz. Only human being there is one security guard. That's it. So we are going to start to lose jobs. Now, how do you understand that? How do you get your coaches ready for that new world? If you're not following up on this and what are the changes in the corporate world, you're going to lose out slightly as a coach. I think so. Now, how is the coachee best served? This is a question I ask myself all the time. Am I doing what the coachee really needs? Will that get them to a higher place? Will that get them more salary? Will that keep them more permanent in their job? I like to look at those questions all the time because I think finally you'll be judged on that. What kind of deliverable did you give them? You might be excellent in keeping them engaged. They might love you intently and all that. All that's fine. But finally, if they don't get results, I don't know if you're charging for the coaching. If you're doing it pro bono, then really not that much of a problem. But I think as coaches, we should be committed to an outcome. That's what I would like to suggest. Now, also the difference between counseling and coaching also has to be understood. Counseling is to get them out of their pain and understand them through empathy, caring, kindness, all of that. But coaching is to get them to a higher level. That's my definition. So I'm saying coaching is the process by which a coachee gets from the coach some hacks to reach a higher level. And I think that is done in a phased manner. And we can give you a lot of tools around that. But I thought you must understand this. The coachee has to be served. The coachee has to benefit. Otherwise, it's really just being a friend or it's just being a person who's journeying along with them. But it's not really playing the coach-coachee paradigm. Now, the worst case scenario is something which I don't see too many coaches looking at. Worst case scenario, what's the worst thing that can happen? If you get your coachee to understand that this is the worst that can happen, I could lose my job, I could be, having this problem. As long as they start to think about that, the subconscious mind already starts to work a situation where you can come out of it. So your plan A, plan B, plan C will be happening automatically. I loved what Leela also said about, some of her peers got together and did that grief session together. Now that is a tribe. We have to have one or two tribes that we can lean on, that we can go back to. Very important. So if your coachee doesn't have that, then they're losing out in a lot of ways. There shouldn't be dependence only on the coach. There should be a lot of ideas coming in from the outside. That cross-pollination is also important. So as a coach, we also need to be cross-pollinated. So this session today itself, I learned so many things. I made my own notes while Leela was talking, so I'm going to talk to her about that some other time. So the other part of it is, how does your coachee become useful? How does the person give back? It's not only about the coachee's issues, right? That coachee should also feel good. That matter of pride should come in. How do you get that? When your coachee is doing well, when your coachee is helping the universe. And we all like to be acknowledged publicly. So some form of like social, interaction or social presence should be put into the process. So I have a nice formula that I've devised some time back, and I keep on tweaking it from time to time. I'm saying the first part is to grow the coachee. So I have this formula called know. That means know where the coachee is at this point of time. Grow, that means elevate or improve them in some way. And show, you have to get your coachee to show themselves. Otherwise, nobody knows they've changed. So very often I get people like top of the ladder in the corporate world saying, but I don't see any change here. I'm thinking like, wow, you missed some points then. The guy's changed this much. But in office, they're not shown. They've gone back to their old standard, old pattern. So now I consciously say, has anybody noticed your change? Has anybody complimented you on what's happened? I ask those questions. Then I get a quick feedback on, are they actually showing their skills? It's not just enough for them to feel nice inside. It's also nice for them to show it on the outside. So that's the show part. The second part of this is, as a coach, you should also get them to go. That means go beyond what their limits are, go into the outside the comfort zone, glow. And this is very important. So while we show is one thing, you're there and you're seen, but glow is to be better than the other people who are seen. The last part of this second conundrum is go, glow, and flow. If they are not helping other people to also get what they need, they're not doing enough for the universe. So you got your personal growth, you got your public level growth, and now you're helping the public to grow. And I think this whole pattern should be churned over and over again. So this is what I thought I should tell you. And I'd like to also say, please keep a cadence to it. Like for instance, if you're exercising and you're not exercising 5 days or 6 days a week, that 1 day a week is not going to cut it, seriously. Then you're going to think after some time, it's not working. Of course it's not working. You did 1 out of 7 days. How do you expect it to work? But if you do it 5 out of 7 days, 6 out of 7 days, let me tell you, you start to see really good results. So whether it's a diet that you're following, whether it's a practice that you're doing, or whether it's the people that you're meeting or people you're sharing with, keep the cadence up. People don't see you performing on a regular basis. They're going to think it's a one-off. It's a flash in the pan. So I thought I should keep some more time for Q&A. So I'm going to stop here. There's a lot I can talk about, but I love the compassionate wisdom. It's about the heart, it's about the head. And I think somewhere in the middle, I've covered all of that. So I'm now open to taking the questions. And I think from here, I'll just go to a Q&A if you want. I still have 10 minutes. I don't know how much time do I have, Pushpa?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah, so I'll take some direct questions. If any of the questions already asked want to be directed to me, I'll take them. And or anything directly to Leela also, please feel comfortable to give it to her. I want you all to get the max out of both of us. So do you want me to take a question from the chat itself directly?
Yeah, either the chat or if you like, you can take yourselves off mute and ask the question. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's make it interactive. Yeah, I think so. Let's make it interactive.
I think there's a perspective that Jyoti has shared. Maybe we can spend some time on that. While I appreciate the need to be up to date with the latest in research and theories, human emotion has not fundamentally changed. So the understanding of how it works or perspectives may have changed, right? So how would both of you look at that?
Yeah, I'll go first if it's okay with you, Leela. So Jyoti's question was in the box somewhere. I missed it somewhere.
It's in the chat box.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so the way human emotion has evolved, but not as fast as the logic has evolved. So, our schools, our educational system is actually catering to upping the needs of the mind, of the brain. And most of us think this emotion is a soft area and we don't really need to go into it. So even in relationships, the sad part of it is we don't consider emotion. And so in that sense, if you look at the parity between the brain and the heart, I think there's a big difference still. But I feel somewhere we have to start to even this out. And there's sometimes when the heart has to take precedence and sometimes the head has to. For instance, in matters of the heart, use the heart. If you're talking about love, don't try to analyze it and put a framework to it. But in matters of the head, let's say you're buying a house or you're buying a car or you're moving cities, then of course start to take all the other parameters into consideration. So there you start to use the head. How do we grow the heart? There are a lot of practices. In fact, Leela has given you so many different tips on this already. So I think maybe she's better to answer the part of the heart. Leela, you want to just take over?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. And that's a great question, Jyoti. I think, just to kind of pull back and not kind of get, sort of not bring in clutter, just to take a step back and look at it from the point of view is we're all coaches. Yeah. And as coaches, we're going to constantly come into contact with the emotional territory of our clients, right? As well as ourselves. And one of the things that helps us to get better at meeting that space, I think when Ian says really is to update ourselves, right? I look at it as going deeper into that space for myself, yeah, getting more comfortable with emotions that I can easily access and befriending emotions I can't, right? So really getting familiar with my own reactive state and my ability to respond under pressure, yeah, all of that. And that helps me to then meet my clients' needs, yeah. So as a coach, getting into emotional territory is like you have to get into it, right? So whether it's through books or through experiential spaces, I think it's pretty much something that we need to do. And when we speak of up-to-date stuff, it's almost like I was saying to Jyoti separately in the chat that over the last many years, right, I mean, Eastern wisdom and Eastern traditions of the body, so for instance, whether it's yoga or meditation or the mind, body, spirit martial arts like Aikido and Tai Chi, right? All of that has shown, the benefits to, all sorts of well-being, today in us. And if you look at neuroscience, which has only developed in the last 30 years, today neuroscience through many sources is now, sort of supporting all of that. Yeah. So whether you read a book like Amanda Blake's Body is Equal to Brain, or whether you pick up deeper, books on neuroscience and perhaps the polyvagal theory, all of those books tell us how we are connected so deeply inside. Yeah. So yeah, emotional space is something we have to step into as clients, as coaches.
I think that's great. That's so well answered. Thank you, Leela. And I also want to share this tribe that you have. Put the same question to the tribe and see how 5-6 people actually give different views on it. It's really nice to understand it. And one of those might work better for you than something you pick up in a book or something, So because the book only gives the author's perspective of it, but through sharing, you get multiple perspectives. I'd like to share that.
Yeah.
There's another question there.
Yeah, quite a few questions now. Okay, so compassionate wisdom, how do you see it? Is it a behavioral change or a functional competency that we can look at cultivating? How would you take?
I'm happy to take that. It's a creative competency, what we call a creative competency. So it comes in the realm of mindsets and behaviors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ian, there's a question for you. how does one balance the don't preach instead share and nudge? Are we saying one encourages the coachee to explore and find answers by self?
Yes, I think asking better questions is really where I'm playing that game. So by nudging, let me share this with you. Instead of telling somebody you came late, let's say, just as a simple example, by asking them, do you think you could have come a little earlier? Do you think that would have helped the team bonding and the whole team spirit? You ask those kind of questions where they understand the answer inside, but it's not a correction, it's not a judgment, it's not a an outside-in view. It's an inside-out view. They actually figure out the answer on the inside, and then they start to understand it. And they're more likely to do it when they get the answer from themselves than when they get it from outside as from a coach. So I think that's what the nudging I'm talking about. Nudging through questions and listening to read between and beyond the lines. And I think every coach has to be an expert at reading people. So I can go into a lot of examples on this space, how you can just read a person. And I think all of us as coaches have to be able to understand and read people, because everyone's not going to tell you what they're feeling. Everyone's not going to say what their problem is. So how do you know somebody is, let's take a very extreme example. How do you know when someone's close to suicide? So that's something you have to think about. As a coach, you can't afford to miss those signs. And sometimes you can just pick it up on the phone. So I think let's just be aware that should get it for you. And this will come over time. So I like the question, and thank you so much for asking that to me directly. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ian. So the next question is, as a coach, how important is it for one to have been in the same situation as their coachee?
I think it's important. I'm going to take that directly, Leela, if you don't mind. I think it's important that you feel what the person is going through. So that's empathy. That's compassion. You have to feel where they are coming from. Otherwise, it's very difficult to give a, outside-in kind of thing. Like if you're a sage on the stage or a guide on the side, there are two different things. I want all of you to understand that. If you don't mind, please start to feel more. But see, I'm going to give a very tangential view on this. If you're not able to do that at home, how can you do it in a professional space as a coach? Then somewhere you're playing a game, you're playing a role, you're putting on a mask. I'm saying as close to being yourself in both the places, at home and at work, I think that's the nice place to be. So if you're not really empathetic and all that to people at home, I'm thinking maybe you're not such a good coach. But this is my view. So things happen at home first and then outside.
May I add to that?
Sure, Leela.
I remember one of my coach mentors back many, many years ago when I was doing my first coaching certification, which was a new field one in Singapore. They told us, you coach from your wounds. Yeah. And what it really means is you may not have the same experience as your client, right? I mean, we're all human beings. We all have a whole bunch of experiences, but you may have been through something similar, which gave you enough pain, or the pain to be able to hold it for somebody else. Yeah.
Sure.
And those are deeper spaces as a coach. Yeah.
I have another question that's come to me, I think. So the question is, what advice would you give for leaders to practice compassion in their everyday role as a leader? Ian, would you want to go first?
I thought you were taking the question. You should answer it.
Oh, me? No.
Oh, that's your question.
No. That's a question that's come to me. So I'm just asking that to you.
Oh, it's come to you. Okay. Okay, yeah. So I think as a leader, you have to be compassionate. And let me tell you, so there are two views of this whole thing. Now, in this lockdown time, a lot of companies have, cut staff off. And it's a very sad thing to do, but a lot of companies have done that to survive. It's almost like you cut off a gangrenous foot rather than lose the whole leg, or rather than lose the person. So some of those are survival strategies, and the corporate world does that quite easily. So a lot of time I'm called in to do a motivational session for those who are left, so that they don't feel that threat that they're going to be thrown out next. So I take it from the company that actually nobody's going to be thrown out after that, because I can't be saying something and then something else happens. So I think compassion is good. Yesterday we were discussing this with a friend, and does the company then say all of us will take 70% salary, but we'll keep everybody on board? And a lot of companies do that. I know CEOs with millions of dollars salary who say, I'll take $1 for the next 1 year. Wow. These are leaders we have to emulate. So compassion has to come in. If you look at the differentials of salaries as you go up the corporate ladder, if the higher ups take a bigger cut, and I think they have more in bank balance at home, I think the people who are really struggling for survival can benefit more. So I think compassion is important. People are wanting to leave their jobs and go back to their village lifestyle because they say they don't want to go through this again. There's a lot of fear. Even companies like GE, Cisco, they're all looking for programs now where we can pep people up and keep their spirit up, because once the spirit goes down, let me tell you, energy goes down, everything else happens badly from there. So I think keeping spirit up, and I think that's a field which Leela, specializes in. We look at that. Spirit world has to be kept up. The spirit has to be kept up, not spirit world. Compassion is important.
Yeah, just to kind
Okay.
of, just with my 2 bits, it's something I encounter all the time with leaders, right? And we say that compassion starts with you. Yeah. So first practice compassion on yourself, and then you will find it more easily available and yourself available to others as well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Starts with self, then spouse, then family. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so I was thinking I should summarize the session, but there's so much that, the 90 minutes has offered. It's very difficult to summarize. So I'm going to ask everyone to open the chat window again. And since I do not have any more questions, so I'm taking the liberty of asking you to quickly maybe summarize your entire experience of this 90 minutes in maybe 1 or 2 sentences, so that we can, we know that we've done a good job. So go ahead. Please feel free to share what your experience has been. I guess some of us had prior appointments and so on, so they were dropping off continuously, but I'm glad that we still have 20 of us on the call.
Thanks, Pushpa. I think before we actually log out, I want to thank you for being so nice on the organizing of this event, and also tying it up together so beautifully. So from me personally, I think Leela also will probably mirror that. Thank you so much for all that you're doing for coaches and enabling the fraternity, the community.
Yeah, thank you, Pushpa.
Thank you, and thank you, Leela. I also have
Really?
to thank, so I have my WICCI colleagues, Shirley, Malini, Jyoti, who've been constant support, Ivy as well. So thank you everyone for being there. And Leela and Ian, thank you so much again for taking time out and being here and sharing some of those wonderful insights. I think it's a key takeaway. I mean, it's, I feel intoxicated with the learning actually. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining today. With that, I'll take goodbye and hope to be back with some more sessions like this, which are very enriching and adds value to everybody. Please do follow us on WICCI, on LinkedIn, and connect with Leela, Ian, and myself and all the others on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much, and let's stay connected.
Thank you.
Thank
Everyone.
Everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Ian.